Welcome to Chapter 15 of Walker Street Shipyards. I am still getting used to my new assembly facilities here at the new shipyards. There are some changes in this location that are a little bit different from the original Walker Street Shipyards facility where I had constructed probably about 70 to 75% of the ship. So I'm going to talk a little bit about something that came up that may be due to a change in the location. It might be due to a change in the weather and atmosphere. But for this chapter, I am going to concentrate on completing the nacelles, on the painting, the wiring, installing the lights, and then affixing the completed nacelles to the ship. I will have to say that I am in love with the look of this beautiful lady so far. It is really coming together and looking a lot like a Federation Starfleet approved USS Enterprise, and I'm getting so close to the goal line of finishing this kit. I can't wait to see what it's going to look like when the nacelles are in place. One of the things that I'm doing at this point in the assembly is I've got this support stick, this Starfleet approved support feature right here to keep the ship level. I had noticed this happened in my first build, and I've actually seen this in a few other videos that builders have experienced, that without the nacelles to balance out the weight of the saucer, and I've talked about the fact that the saucer is the heaviest component, single heaviest component of this build. Without the nacelles to balance things out, that the ship lifts forward. Again, my first build did the same thing. This kit is really engineered to balance on this point right here and to balance out once the nacelles are in place and the saucer is in place. What I worry about is with it listing forward that it places undue stress on this glue point. Thank you, Fizzy, for chiming in. That's my cat, Fizzy, by the way. And I really don't want to stress this connection point, so it's easy enough to just have this support feature right here to keep the ship level until those nacelles are in place. On my first build, once I attach the nacelles, the ship is completely leveled out on its own. So the first thing that I have done, the most recent thing that I've done since the last chapter, is gone in and completed the lower saucer Aztecing. As I detailed in a previous chapter, I brought the Aztec decals up to a certain point and then stopped so that I would have a place to affix masking tape and mask off the lower saucer and masking off the areas so that I could apply putty and do some sanding and then do painting around the saucer rim to take care of a lot of the light leaks that are so persistent in the saucer construction. So I brought out the Aztec decals to the rim to make it a little bit easier to work on the underside. I basically raised the ship by stacking a lot of books, and it made it easier to get up under the saucer. It was still a little bit tricky fixing the Aztecs essentially upside down, but I got everything into place. There was just one area where it had a little bit of a problem, and the Aztec decal folded over. I couldn't fix it. I waited till it dried, sliced off that bad portion, and actually did a patch using a portion of decals that I'm not going to be using in this kit. While everything was raised up in the air, I also went in and did the Aztec decaling on the underside of the secondary hull, and as long as all that was going on, I also did some of the registry markings. I'm not entirely sure what these decals signify, but I think they look cool. Then I also went in and did this red box that's on the lower side of the fan tail. Now I decided to roll the dice and use the stock Polar Lights decals to mostly because I haven't been able to find aftermarket decals for this red box. So when I laid the decals in the setting solution and gave them enough time, brought them back out before I could even put them in place, before I even laid them down onto the hull to carefully try to transfer them, this happened. The red lines just broke into different pieces and started drifting around. Fortunately, I have a spare set of decals. I had ordered a spare set in my first build, so once I removed the red box decals from the sheet and sprayed them with a few coats of Tamiya semi-gloss sealer, gave them about 24 hours to completely cure. I had seen in some construction forums that if there's problematic decals coming apart, that spraying things with a sealer can help. And I'll have to say that that was really great advice. Once that sealer had set, I was able to put those decals into place. So now I've got this little red box looking great. So one of the things that I discovered when masking the nacelles is that even though I had been using this blue masking tape throughout the majority of this build, that when I was, when I applied it to do a lot of the fine detail painting, particularly on one nacelle, there was some type of gunk, some type of schmutz that came off when I peeled the tape off, some gummy residue left behind that took a little bit of effort, took a couple of days of careful applications of warm water and dishwashing material and paper towels, and in some cases just rubbing it off with my thumb to get everything cleaned up, and had to go back in and spot paint some of the areas with the Tamiya fine white primer and the Tamiya pearl white gloss. I'm not really sure why now all of a sudden this tape that I've been using throughout the majority of the build started leaving that residue. What I suspect, and this may be a product of the new facilities that I am in, there's a lot of windows here in this new hobby room. That's really great for providing a lot of light. But and again, it might just be the atmosphere, it might just be the time of the year, because this is the South, it is beginning of summer, it has gotten warmer, it has gotten more humid, and when I open the windows to put everything in the paint box, even though I have a fan pulling the air and pulling the fumes and blowing out the window, I suspect that perhaps warm, humid air came in through the windows, and perhaps that caused some type of reaction with the blue paint. It's the only real different variable I can think of. So fortunately, at this stage of the build, I can use the Tamiya vinyl masking tape because the masking areas are small enough. So I have gone in to do the fine detail painting on the nacelles. Again, masked this area mostly with the vinyl masking material, and did the peekaboo blue on the front of the nacelles, as well as this little indented area here in the front of this grill intake area. Then for the actual intakes, brush painted with Liquitex flat black, a few coats, then gave that brush coats of Vallejo matte varnish, and once that had sealed, used Liquitex copper metallic paint and dry brushed in place. I really love the way this looks. This is a great detail. So the next step is going to be, as I've talked about it, I've put it off, but now it is finally time to do those dreaded chiller grills. Before getting into the details of masking and painting the chiller grills, I wanted to take another look at this beautiful ship, the build so far. The 1/350 scale Polar Lights Enterprise Refit, for all of its faults and for all of its frustrations, is a beautiful kit as it comes together with all the lights in it. And it's hard to say, but yes, it really is worth all of the frustration and all of the hard work when you start getting to this stage of the build and you start to get down towards the finish line. You can see the results of all the work that you put into it. But speaking of frustrations and hard work, now it's time for the chiller grills. The chiller grills go on the interior nacelles, and in Star Trek the Motion Picture and the subsequent movies, they light up when the ship goes into warp drive. When masked and painted and lit properly, they are a really fantastic looking part of the build. Matt, in I believe it's chapter 25 of his 3-fit build series dedicated to the nacelles, says that the chiller grills are his least favorite part of the build and that every builder has problems with them. It's true, they do present a lot of challenges and a lot of frustrations because you have to, if you're going to light them, you have to mask in these thin little grooves. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 grooves per chiller grill. You have to carefully mask and then paint over a darker color, generally a black color, and then when your paint has dried, after several coats, you peel up the masking and light comes through. The problem is they are long, very straight lines, and on my first build it was difficult finding masking material. I first tried with 2mm Tamiya vinyl masking tape. It was the only thing that I could find. It was the thinnest that I could find that my local hobby shop carried. I really, in looking around online, I couldn't find any thinner tape at the time. Now I'm finding all kinds of tape. At the time, 2.5 years ago in building the kit, I couldn't find anything. The problem is the 2mm is just a little bit too wide to lay down flat in the bottom of the groove. I gave it a try, painted them, and when I peeled them up, paint had gotten in because there wasn't a firm bond along the bottom of the chiller grill groove, and they really looked kind of raggedy. I tried to scrape them out and clean them up, and it just didn't come out right. The problem with the chiller grills, and one of the reasons they're so frustrating, it's pretty much get it done in one shot and get it done right the first time, because it's very hard to clean them up and start all over again. So for that build, I ordered another set from Polar Lights. They cost less than 20 bucks. Only took about a week or so to come in. Looked at some other options, and finally what I did was I took the 2mm tape, laid it out straight on my cutting mat, took a straight edge and my hobby knife, and pretty much just sliced them straight down the middle. So, yeah, tedious. But the results were pretty fantastic. For this build, fortunately, now I know about HDA's window and clear parts mask, which I've used in other portions of the ship so far. The impulse crystal really looks fantastic thanks to the mask for that. But there are 20 1/4mm strips, for vinyl strips for masking the warp nacelles. Very, very thin blue masking strips. You can see this line right here is where I've peeled one off and gone ahead and laid a line down in this chiller. So it's, yes, very delicate, very exacting work. Now I have to lay down the other ones for this and then this chiller grill as well. So now I'm going to finish up the masking and get these into the paint box, and we'll see how they come out. Well, the chiller grills have been painted. The beginning of the process was giving the backs of each of the clear chiller grill parts faint coating of Tamiya flat sealer, 2 very fine dustings. That is to help diffuse any of the light coming back from behind the chillers. Then, as I said, I very carefully laid down the HDA 1/4 millimeter blue vinyl masking tape down into the grooves, 5 on each chiller, and then began a long Sunday morning and long Sunday afternoon of spray painting the chillers. I use a Tester's rattle can flat black spray paint. I gave them not so much coats of paint, but fine dustings. I just built up a series of fine dustings. I wanted to make sure that the spray paint didn't pool up and flow down into the grooves and perhaps even flow between the masking material and the clear parts. So just did a series of very fine coats. After about the 4th fine dusting, I actually rotated the chillers and gave them 2 more coats. Then began tests. I held them up against a light source to see if light was coming through the black spray painted portions. There was some light that was making its way through, so I continued to apply coats. Once I was sure that no light was coming through, then I gave 2 fine coats of a Tamiya rattle can purple spray paint. If you take a look in some reference photos of the shooting model of the Star Trek The Motion Picture Enterprise, and actually on some kits that other builders have done, you can see that there is a really fine powdery light purple hue over this portion. It's very difficult to see, and on mine they're mostly black, but I know that purple color's there. So when that was all done, the big test, of course, the moment we're all waiting for each time we do these chillers, peeled up the 5 strips to see how it turned out. And I was mostly very pleased. I got good straight lines, fine masking. There was almost no overspray. There were just a few places where deep down in the groove there was the tiniest amount of overspray. So I gave the chillers about 24 hours gave the paint coating 24 hours to cure, to fully harden, then came back with a hobby knife, very carefully went down in the grooves in the very few spaces where there was a little bit of overspray and a little bit of raggediness, and just scraped it away with the point of the hobby knife, brushed it out with a brush, and in the end was very pleased with the outcome of the painting. The next step was to give some lighting tests, to have some lighting tests to really see how they look. The first way that I tried it was I took the LED strip light, the blue LED strip light, and mounted it on the opposing side interior nacelle, the opposing side from the chiller grill. Just mounted it straight behind the chiller and let it shine through. Got some pretty horrendous hot spots coming through the chiller grill. Really, it looked like a series of blue spotlights coming through. So I went the route, and again, this is a test, these have not been permanently mounted, of placing the LED strip light along the top, and it will be above the actual chiller grill, then put down adhesive silver reflective aluminum tape, so that the light comes from the LED strip light and bounces off of this, then comes through the chiller. So on this nacelle, the actual port nacelle, I've got it all set up for a test. let's take a look. Very pleased with the look. It lights up really beautiful. Going into warp drive. Can't wait to see when these chillers are permanently mounted onto the pylons. Throughout this build, I've gone back and forth, trying to make up my mind whether I was going to light the RCS thruster portion of these long fins that go on the back of the nacelles. I actually planned ahead and ran power lines through the secondary hull up through the pylons and designating them each as spares in case I decided I wanted to go that route. I kept looking at other builds and decided that when other builders had lit up these RCS thrusters, they just looked great. So I'm glad I had those spares in place, and in the end decided that's what I was going to do. From Evans Designs, I ordered these nano size SMDs. I know they're very hard to see. They are amber in color. Then I took the two styrene halves of the fin pieces with Tamiya vinyl tape, masked off these little sort of square areas, actually kind of rhombus areas, masked them off on both sides, then light blocked them with Testor's flat black paint, both sides, couple good coats, then peeled up the Tamiya vinyl tape and gave them a couple of coats of Tamiya fine white primer. Did some tests, and the little amber SMDs not only give a great little spotlight coming out of the hole here, but also cause this whole little area to glow. So with your amber glow and with your little amber spotlight coming out through here, these RCS thrusters look really great. So I went in and sheared off the forward pins, the forward support pins on these fins. You really don't need them. They fit very tightly in this space here where they go. You really don't need the pins at all. But I left these pins right here just sort of to help with positioning. Then I used a 7/64 drill bit to drill this hole out bigger, because the resistor for the line, again from Evans Designs, these SMDs, this resistor wouldn't go through this hole, so the 7/64 bit very carefully drilled this out to make it just big enough. While I had the Dremel out and the bit, I also drilled out this hole right here where the strobe light that connects to the antenna control circuitry board goes. As I said before, the lights, the navigation lights and strobe lights are really a little bit too big to go through the holes throughout this build, and I wanted to make sure that the dome of the strobe actually emerged from the top of the nacelles. So very carefully drilled this out as well. So I wanted chapter 15 to be the complete process of building the nacelles. I sort of had a head start because, as I showed in a previous chapter, I had given them light blocking coats and then a couple of coats of the Tamiya fine white primer and the Tamiya pearl white and a semi-gloss. But this kit dictates you assemble it at its own pace, not yours, and some things just take longer than you really plan. It took longer than I intended to get a really good look on the detail painting for these intake areas here on the forward portion of the nacelles. The chillers pretty much consumed an entire weekend, but they came out looking exactly the way I wanted. So I think at this point I am going to wrap up chapter 15 with everything that I've done so far, and I'll begin chapter 16, completing the final assembly processes for the nacelles, which includes making sure that all the interior lighting goes in place, the spots, the strobe lights, the chiller grill lights, and wiring up the little SMDs for the RCS thrusters. Then getting the nacelles completely assembled together, then the final wiring of all the components to the wires coming out of the top of the nacelle pylons, and then permanently mounting them into place. Mounting the nacelles is pretty much the final portion, or will be the final portion, of the major assembly of this kit. So that's going to be a very big step. Look forward to seeing everyone in Chapter 16, where we'll finish up the process of closing up and mounting the nacelles, and then begin the final decaling, the Aztec decaling and registry decaling. But I'll leave everyone with a good look at those RCS thrusters at the end of the nacelles. We'll see everybody, Chapter 16, Walker Street Shipyards.